So a lot of the Canadian marijuana companies are down about 25 to 30% in the past few months, and I thought that it would be a good idea to make a video and just take a look to see if they're undervalued and whether or not right now would be a good time to buy them. So a lot of these companies, in addition to being able to get them for a discount relative to what they were a few months ago, a lot of these companies are also further progressed now than what they were a few months ago. So in addition to getting a discount, you're also getting a company that is further progressed. So the gap in terms of the price drop is even slightly bigger than the obvious 30% drop or whatever it was. But anyways, so first of all, I'm going to be doing this in Paint because I find it easier, but let's take a quick look at what it means for a company to be undervalued. So if you have two companies, let's call this company A, let's call this company B. If you have two similar companies and you're going to be investing X amount of money into one of these companies, you're looking at whether or not for a certain amount of risk, like let's say this company has a value of 1 risk, this company has a value of 2. So this company B is twice as risky than company A, right? If company B is twice as risky, but it can provide you with $100 for your investment, while company A can only provide you with $25 for your investment, then company B is a better investment for you in terms of risk. Let's assume that everything else about these companies is roughly equal, so then they might not necessarily cost the same, but in terms of price earnings ratios and stuff like that, these companies are more or less equal. So in terms of risk, it would be better for you to invest into company B, even though it is a little bit more risky, because you would be making significantly more than if you were investing into company A. In the long run, investing into companies like company B would be better than investing into a bunch of companies like company A, because for the risk that you are taking, company B or companies like company B would provide you with more profit. One of the major challenges of the stock market, of course, is figuring out exactly what is risky and figuring out exactly whether or not the market is correct about certain stocks. Despite what you might hear, the market is not always right, and the market is really just a bunch of people gathered together, and people can be wrong. I mean, during the housing crash, there were a few people that actually figured out that, you know, the housing market was going to crash eventually, and just because the market was artificially inflated, well, it wasn't really artificially inflated, but just because the market was doing something that was unsustainable did not mean that the market was right. The market was clearly wrong, and there were a few people that figured it out and made a lot of money, but the majority of people lost money. So going back to the Canadian marijuana stocks, if you look at some of the future projections of them, so if we look at Supreme Pharmaceuticals, for example, which I'm going to be using for an example, I'm going to be using this company as an example because it's really the simplest company to take a look at. They have a business-to-business business model, so they're going to be selling to other businesses, which means that they don't really have to spend money on advertising. They don't really have to spend a lot of money to create any sort of brand name. And their business is fairly simple. Their expenses should be lower than some of the other companies. Now, Supreme Pharmaceuticals, they said that on their 342,000 square feet that they currently have, they are going to be able to produce 10,000 kilograms by 2017. Well, annual capacity of 10,000 kilograms by June of 2017, which they have not done. And once everything is complete, they predict 50,000 kilograms. Now, if we look at some charts, we can see that that is a little bit of a high estimate. This chart is not correct, but it's more or less close. I mean, aphria, they listed as a million square feet to produce 60,000 kilograms. When in fact, if you look at aphria, you can see that a million square feet will in fact produce 75,000 kilograms by aphria's estimate. So a million square feet producing 75,000 kilograms. Supreme Pharmaceuticals says that they can have 342,000 square feet producing 50,000. Seems like a little high. So let's say the Supreme Pharmaceuticals can produce 30,000 square feet, right? So if Supreme Pharmaceuticals can, not 30,000 square feet, 30,000 kilograms, if Supreme Pharmaceuticals can produce 30,000 kilograms of marijuana by, let's say, a year and a half from now, so 30,000 kilograms, well, 30,000, you get the point. 30,000 kilograms, if they make $1 profit per gram, so $1 profit per gram, that will result in $30 million profit per year. And at $30 million profit per year, right? At a price earning ratio of 10, this company would be worth 300 million. At a price earning ratio of 30, which is more likely, I'm just writing random numbers, but you get the point. But at a price earning ratio of 30, they would be worth 900 million, which is more likely. I think 30 will be probably what it's going to be when things settle down. Maybe a little bit higher than 30, but around there. But right now, this company is worth 184 million. So if they complete everything in a year and a half from now, and everything is up and running, then this company will obviously be worth more than it is right now, and you will get a fairly decent return on your investment. One of the major problems for a lot of these companies is that, well, they don't necessarily know exactly how much time it's going to be taken for everything to get legalized, and also they have a lot of overhead expenses. So Supreme Pharmaceuticals and a lot of these other companies, they might have to dilute their stock more in the future because they're going to be running out of money. Also, they have to deal with a lot of government bureaucracy crap. So Supreme Pharmaceuticals, by the way, this is a picture of their facility. They're currently setting it up. Supreme Pharmaceuticals, they had a batch of marijuana that they made. They had some people from the Canadian government come in and test it, and the Canadian government decided that it did not like that they were using renal nutrients in it, and they had to destroy the whole batch and redo everything. And that took a few months, and it cost them a lot of money. And because of that, the shareholders are the ones who are punished. If you were holding the stock and you had to wait until Supreme Pharmaceuticals, brew a new batch and redid everything, it probably cost them $1 million, maybe probably more, after all was done, and it's just a waste. So the government, the inefficiency of the government, and everything taking probably longer than it is expected is going to be the main problem for a lot of these companies. If the government cannot meet its deadlines by July of next year, then there will be a lot of problems for these companies. So for somebody like Canopy Growth, who is currently storing a lot of marijuana in their vault, if the government cannot meet the July deadline by next year, then that's a major problem for them, because not only are they going to be having a lot of money tied up in inventory, but that inventory also has a shelf life, and the longer that it sits in their vault, well, the more problems that it awaits. If the government, let's say, delays legalization by another year for some reason, let's just say something really bad happens and they delay it by an entire year, I mean, these companies are going to be hurt fairly severely. They're going to be having tens of millions of dollars wasted because of those delays. And that's going to be problematic. A lot of these companies are depending fairly heavily on legalization in order to be able to make a lot of money. And if that doesn't happen for some reason, if there's a delay, then that's going to be very problematic. And that is where most of the risk lies. Most of the risk with these companies is government legalization, whether or not the government can do everything efficiently and in a timely manner, and also probably unforeseen problems, whether or not their business models are good, whether or not they can survive in the long run and actually be competitive. It is possible that somebody else, let's say somebody in, well, I would say the United States, but the United States is not going to be happening in a while. Let's say somebody in another country can simply grow marijuana significantly less than some of these companies, then that person might have an advantage in other markets. I'm pretty sure that due to tariffs and all of that stuff, the Canadian market is going to be pretty safe for a lot of these companies. There shouldn't be too much outside competition for at least the near term, but other than that, yeah, the main risk remains with the government and with getting everything set up within a reasonable cost. So these companies, as far as most of them have said, they should have enough money to complete at least most of their expansions. Like Supreme Pharmaceuticals should have enough money to complete a huge portion of their expansion, and once they do that and once everything is running, once they can actually prove that they can produce what they promised, their stock should go up. And if you wanted to buy these stocks right now, I don't think that it's a very bad point to buy them at, because I mean, they are falling. They have been falling for quite a bit. So Supreme Pharmaceuticals have been falling, and it's still falling, it seems. But some of these other companies, the Canopy Growth, they've more or less stagnated at around, at around this area. and they're not really going anywhere, it doesn't seem. So if you bought them right now, it wouldn't be a terrible point to enter the market at. But I don't think that you're going to be punished in any way if you wait a few more months. I don't think that these stocks are going to take off, at least in the next few months. So if you wait a little bit longer, I don't think that you're going to get a significantly worse deal. You might even get a better deal if you wait a few months. But if you were to buy them right now, I think that realistically it would not be a terrible entry point to get into some of these stocks right now. A lot of people are currently not buying them. The market has cooled down. People have taken their money and put it elsewhere. And if you buy it now or in the next few months, you should be okay in terms of holding it for another year or two and actually gaining a decent profit. I think that that would be realistic. And of course, I am assuming that if you're going to be making a profit on these stocks, that everything will go roughly okay in terms of marijuana legalization in Canada. If for some reason there are major delays in the legalization, then you might not make the money that you want to make. But if everything goes fine, which I think is favorable, I don't know. I don't know how reliable the Canadian government is. I don't know how reliable government is. They say a lot of things, they screw up a lot of things, but in terms of something like this, I don't know how practical it will be to assume that everything goes fine. So if everything goes fine, you should be able to get a decent profit if you invest right now, but of course, you gotta assume for the worst, and well, don't invest what you cannot lose. So yeah, right now is a decent time to buy. By the way, let me know if this video is helpful. I don't know if these are too helpful for a lot of you guys, but if you want more stuff like this, I can upload it. It's not too particularly difficult to make, so I can upload these if you want, or I can just wait for news to come out and actually upload more, more important content. But let me know.